Never be afraid of the way that I made you, 'cause he made you fearfully and wonderfully. Every part of you is his image. Yes, it is. Never let anyone look down on you for what you are or what you ain't. Stand tall and walk in what you know, in what you know. Be confident in the abilities of his spirit. He's creating in you the desire to do what pleases him. You gotta want it more than anyone wants it for yourself. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Moving on Faith. I am your sister, Anamalave. So if this is your first time joining us, then I want to say, first off, welcome and thank you so much. Please subscribe to the channel and hit a like for your girl. I would really appreciate it. So, ladies, this has been coming for a long time now. I've been talking about this Sarai to Sarah Bible study, and I know it seems like it would just never come, but good things take time. So finally, it's here, and I'm so excited to share this with you, this journey. And I wanted to share a little bit about kind of what led me to um, even wanting to do a Bible study on Sarah because my husband and I have talked about this before. It's so intimidating to even venture to do Bible studies on like the patriarchs or the matriarchs, right? Because you don't want to mess up. You don't want to get it wrong. It can be a very slippery slope. But the reason why I wanted to bring this out and to kind of share what I've learned is um, a few months back, I found myself in a different place in my walk and in my journey, a place that really challenged me more than what I had been used to over the past couple of years. It's very easy to get complacent in this walk when you're not being challenged or you're not being put in situations that are more challenging for you. And so for me, a few months back, I found myself in a situation that was very challenging for me spiritually in my walk. But it was a blessing in disguise, right? Because it allowed me to, um, it revealed in me, to me, my areas of weakness and the areas in which I needed to improve upon for my walk as a wife, as a sister, as a mother, kind of all around, right? So upon much reflection, I then started this whole journey of just really dedicating myself to being to focusing on like spiritual healing. Sometimes we come into this truth and we just assume that we start following commandments and we're just healed. Like that's it. It's done. The work is done. But I think the bigger takeaway is that once you start keeping the commandments, once you accept the truth and you start trying to walk in Torah, that's really when the work begins, right? It really begins spiritually too. You're not just going to be healed overnight. You're not just going to be cured instantly of all of the things that kind of can hinder your walk or your relationship with the Most High. And so this was something that I didn't even really acknowledge or know for myself. With time, I'm realizing that healing does take time. Growth takes time. Those types of things, they don't just happen overnight. The accumulation of knowledge does not solidify your healing journey. Okay. So for me, despite the fact that I was studying so much and learning so much, and I give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High for even allowing me to see the word and see the truth in the word. Um, but it wasn't enough to just have knowledge, right? I had to kind of get past that and really begin this this journey of healing. So, like I said, a few months back, I found myself in a situation where I was forced to acknowledge areas in my life where I was spiritually wounded, spiritually weak. I was still carrying trauma from all throughout my life, still carrying that with me in this truth and in this walk. And I think a lot of us do that. And sometimes we don't even realize it, because we just imagine that we're healed. And in many regards, we are. But there are always still certain places, certain dark corners, in our spirit where we still need to be healed. We still are wounded. We're still carrying something that is hindering our walk, is hindering our relationship with the Most High, and it's hindering the relationships around us, whether it's with our husbands, whether it's with our children, whether it's with our parents or other sisters or other brethren. So it's really important to kind of self-reflect on that. So for me, I began this journey of really, number one, acknowledging the areas in my life where I was falling short and what was necessary in order for me to um, begin that healing journey. So, acknowledgement, number one. And then I began really just devoting myself to fasting and praying and meditating. So, fasting to really purge any iniquity from my spirit. Yes, it's a physical fast, but it's more than that. It's a spiritual fast. When your intention is to have a purifying and cleansing um, fast for your spirit, it has the same type of effect that you would have in your physical fast, right? So I began really just focusing on fasting and praying. Praying was me speaking to Yah. But most importantly was the meditating. The meditating was me listening to him, listening for his voice, listening to the Ruach, and asking it to heal me, to cleanse me, to make me new, to make me whole, um, and to remove anything that was hindering my walk, that was hindering my relationship with him, and that was keeping me from being my true self and meeting my full potential in Torah as a Torah woman, as a Torah wife, as a Torah mother. And so thus that journey began for me. And a huge part of it was I do believe the Ruach actually led me to Sarah because I asked myself, how can I be a better wife? How can I be a better mother? How can I be a better woman in Torah? And Yah put it in my spirit to seek out Sarah, right? Seek out Sarah. Oh, and man, let me tell you, it's just been an amazing. I'm like getting emotional because it really has been just a remarkable journey for me. And I'm just very appreciative of where Yah has led me and what He has taken me through. And I just give Him all the praise, honor, and glory in Yehoshua's name. Get it together. Um, but yeah, so Sarah. All right, let's start talking about Sarah. Okay, so I got my notes because I don't have the best memory, so work with me. All right, Sarah, right? Sarah is known, right? We all know Sarah as being Abraham's wife, right? But she's also known as the Mother of Nations. And those are titles, right? She's his wife, she's Isaac's mom, she's Mother of Nations. But who was she? Who really was she? What, as a woman, woman to woman, sister to sister, who was this woman, right? Who was this woman who is the leader of our matriarch system, right? So all of the women in the Bible, they come after her, right? So she is the example for us to look at, that shining example. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to like really show you who I've met in the scriptures, who I have come to know as Sarah, Ema Sarah, right? So here we go, y'all. So we read about her constantly through the scriptures, and it's easy to like forget that she was a real person. A lot of times we read the scriptures and we forget like this stuff really happened, but she was a real person. She was a real woman with real feelings, real emotions, real experiences, real challenges. And she was dealing with a lot of really heavy stuff that a lot of us have never dealt with, probably won't deal with. Well, you never know, but never say never. But she was dealing with a lot of heavy stuff, and I think it's the things that she went through and the experiences that she went through that really shaped her as a wife, a mother, but even more than that, has shaped her as a woman in Torah. What does that mean for us, ladies? So her journey, right? Her journey is one that exemplifies submission, love, strength, but most of all, it exemplifies faith, right? Her faith. I mean, that is the underlying message throughout her entire story. And all of the different parts of it, right? The submission, the love, the strength, those are all parts of us as women. We all experience that. We all experience submission and love and strength and faith. And so this woman's life, we're gonna go through it. And I challenge you to not see yourself in her shoes and see things through her eyes. I challenge you not to. It's gonna be difficult. That's a challenge because you are going to join her on this journey and you are going to be like, man, I have felt that way. I have seen things that way. I've experienced something similar to that. I know exactly how she felt. Or you're going to look at her situation, you're going to hear what she's been through, and you're going to say, gosh, I wish I could be like that. I wish that I was that submissive. I wish I was that obedient. I wish I had that much love and that much strength. And I wish my faith was that strong. So, man, it's just so much to unpack here. So, whew, in this study, we're going to be, I took a lot on my hands. Okay. In this study, we're going to be taking a really deep look at Sarah, her spiritual journey, and along the way, the characteristics and hopefully a lot of the spiritual characteristics that make her who she is. And hopefully, we can all kind of glean from her experiences valuable lessons that we can apply to our lives and our walks as women in Torah. Okay. So and I have learned so much from her. So I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful. Okay, let's start with the question of who was Sarah? Who was she? And yes, that is a loaded question. But let's get started. So Sarah, whom we know as Sarah, was born as Sarai. Sarai actually translates to my princess in Hebrew. For those of you who want to reference a Strong's, you can do so at H8297. Now, if you read in chapter 11 of Genesis, which actually we will go to, Genesis chapter 11, we're going to start at verse 27. Now, these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran begot Lot. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity, in Ur of the Chaldees. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife Milcah, and the daughter of Haran, and the father of Milcah, and the father of Iscah. But Sarai was barren; she had no child. And Sarah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So this is just giving you a little bit of context of who everyone is. Sarah's husband is Abram at this time. And for those of you who are like, I thought we were talking about Sarah. So before Sarah became Sarah, she was Sarai. Before Abraham became Abraham, he was Abram. And this is really important, which we will dive into a little bit more later. But for those of you who just read that, you're just like, okay, so she what they so whose daughter was she? Okay, so you read it right. Sarah or Sarai at this time. Sarai actually Abraham's or Abram's half sister, right? So I'm sure that kind of blew your mind if you didn't already know that they were half siblings. Okay, so the thought of that, the thought of like marrying your brother could be a little bit jarring. It could take you back. You might have to clutch your pearls. But find comfort in knowing that Yah instituted a commandment prohibiting inter sibling marriages. So you're in luck. And for the sake of clarification, and also just diving into Torah because it's so necessary. We'll just go to Leviticus 18 and 9 just to touch that really quick. Leviticus 18 and 9. The nakedness of thy sister, the daughter of thy father, or daughter of thy mother, whether she be born at home or born abroad, even their nakedness thou shalt not uncover. So I imagine this was a one-off, and Yah was like, okay, we're just gonna be done with that. Check that off the list. Done. Praise Yah. Praise Yah for that one. Now, Sarai was said to be very. Oh, I will actually put this back here. Don't get me, you know how to work technology. Okay, so Sarai was said to be a most beautiful woman, extremely gorgeous, a natural beauty, right? She captured the attention of notable men, which we will get into as we continue on in her journey. But it is very important to know that um, she was gorgeous. She was beautiful, right? Now, Sarai and Abram came from Ur of the Chaldees, and you can actually reference that really quick in Genesis 11 through 28. All right, so as we read, and Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. Now, I think it's pretty interesting, and I think you might find it interesting to know that Ur actually means flame. Okay, flame. Now, Ur was a city in southern Babylonia, city of the Chaldeans. It was a center of moon worship. So, and it was also the home of Abram's father, Terah, and the departure point for the Abraham's migration to Mesopotamia and Canaan. So that was a place where they originally started. So we can see here that Ur was a place that worshipped other gods, specifically the moon god. And I think this is really important because this shows you kind of their background, right? So they're coming from a place that was very much into pagan worship, okay, paganism, and for whatever reason, Yah chose them, right, to come out of that. But I think it's important to, of course, always go back to Torah and kind of see what Torah has to say about this. So really quick, we're going to go to Exodus 20 and 4, and I'm sure most of you already know this because you guys are all very diligent and you're about this life, this Bible life, this Torah life. So I'm sure you already know where I'm going. But for those of you who haven't come across this, it's always very good to know. So we're going to go to verse 4, and we're going to read down to verse 6. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, such as the moon, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, Jehovah your Elohim, am a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. So I mean, that's pretty interesting, right? I mean, if you love him, you'll keep his commandments. Where else is that? Yeah, so very interesting how that kind of talks about, these places that are worshiping the moon, such as Ur. So yeah, you shouldn't be bowing down to any idols, folks. It's very important to know. Now, clearly, Yah saw something in Abram and Sarai, something special, something undefiled, something he could work with. right? Something he could mold and teach. And mostly, I'm imagining that there was something in their heart. We always throw that phrase around. Oh, Yah knows my heart. Well, for some of y'all, you should be very afraid of that fact. But in Abram and Sarai's case, it worked out for them. He saw something in their heart that was true to what he needed. He needed. Um, they were people he could work with. He could lead, and that was a blessing in itself. Now, as we read in Genesis 11 and 30, Sarah was barren. She had no child, no children. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Bible or with the Hebraic understanding and the Hebraic culture of the people during this time, especially, right? The reason why it's really important that they even mention it, because you're probably wondering, like, why would they even mention that? The reason is because in the Hebraic culture, the woman's ability to conceive or bring forth a child went hand in hand with her future survival. Her future survival. Okay. Now, while having a child and conceiving a child and bringing forth a child is not a woman's only function. It is absolutely a part of that function. But most importantly, when it comes to inheritance and security, it did play a very big part in the Hebraic culture. So, and I'll kind of go more into this. So, you can find an example of this very situation between Hannah and Penina in First Samuel, right? So we see women all throughout the Bible begging and pleading for Yah to allow conception. Some examples, again, are Hannah, Rachel, Elizabeth. Remember that the inheritance went to the children, so the wives were counting, or should anything happen to the husband or father, the inheritance would go to the children. So the wives were counting on their child to secure their financial survival, to secure their provision and their protection, right? If your survival lay in the hands of another woman's child, who is to say who is to say that that child would grow up and provide for you in the way that you deserve or you're accustomed to, especially if the mother of that child doesn't like you, then how likely is that child to really provide for you in the way that you need? So be careful with that. That's why women were terrified when they couldn't have children, because it's like, man, if my life is put in the hands of the other kid, I'm probably not in a good place. So really quick, I just want to go to the inheritance law, because again, we always go back to Torah to teach us why and explain why these things were so important in our culture, right? So I'm just gonna go. I forgot to do this the last time, but I'm working on it, y'all. So we're gonna go to Numbers 27. For those of you who were unaware, when you want to learn more about inheritance law, this whole chapter is going to give you some really amazing information about inheritance. So definitely put a bookmark in it. That way you can return back to it later and kind of dive into it. Now we're just going to go and read from 7 to 11. Okay, we can actually just start at 6. It's fine. All right. Okay, perfect. And Yahweh spoke unto Moshe, saying, the daughters of Zelophehad speak right. Thou shalt surely give them a possession of an inheritance among their father's brethren, and thou shalt cause the inheritance of their father to pass unto them. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a man die and have no son, then ye shall cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughter. And if he have no daughter, then ye shall give his inheritance unto his brethren. And if he have no brethren, then he shall give his inheritance unto his father's brethren. And if his father has no brethren, then he shall give his inheritance unto his kinsman that is next to him of his family, and he shall possess it. And it shall be unto the children of Israel a statute and a judgment, as Jehovah commanded Moshe. So as you can see there, when a husband died, right, the inheritance doesn't just go to the wife. Like, it's not like the American culture where that's kind of what happens, but instead it goes to the children. And so it was really important for women to have children, so that the inheritance that was given to their children could now be used to help provide for them and give them the provision and protection that they needed. right? So very important. Um, Now, we and the reason why I went through all of that information because it seems like it's kind of like all over the place, but we should always really try to apply the appropriate and the correct context in order to understand what it is we're reading. Like all of this background information was really important, right? Because it's going to help us understand why certain decisions were being made by Sarah or Sarai and why certain decisions were being made by Abraham. Because the context of the culture or the cultural context it most certainly applies and it weighs heavily on the decisions that they have made throughout this journey, throughout their walk. So back to their journey. After leaving Ur, they settled in Haran where Terah, Abraham's father, dies. Now it's at this point that Yah calls Abraham to leave Haran to begin his journey to the promised land. Okay, so you can actually reference this in Genesis. We're going to go to Genesis 12. Genesis 12, 1 through 3. All right. Genesis 12, 1, 1 through 3. Okay. Now Yahweh had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee, and I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee, and in thee shall all families of the earth be saved. Now, one key part in this passage that I believe can easily be overlooked is where it says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. And I say contempt because I also I like to read the like ESV as well to kind of give um, a different or using different use of different words. For me, it definitely helps me to understand a little bit better. And if you don't choose to, that's fine for you too. But I like to check all the different dialects and versions. So to treat you with contempt. Now I like the word contempt because it really is a more appropriate use um, of the word to really explain what is being said here. And I'm going to use it because it definitely applies all throughout this whole story. And it really gives you a better understanding and idea of what is being said here. So, first off, I want to just define I want to just define the word contempt because I didn't really know what it meant, so I had to really look into it. So, contempt, the feeling that a person or a thing is beneath consideration, worthless, or deserving scorn, disregard for something that should be taken into account, the offense of being disobedient or to be disrespectful. Let's remember this because it is very important. And I'm going to use this word contempt several times. So keep this definition in mind, right? In mind. So yeah. So those of the people who looked over Abram as if he was worthless or they disrespected him or they said, I don't really have to acknowledge him or any of that type of stuff. When they treated him like that, they were going to be cursed. Remember that. Put a pin in that. All right, let's go back to the scripture. All right. So, verse 4. So Abram departed as Jehovah had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarai, his wife, and Lot, his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan, and into the land of Canaan they came. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Sichem, unto the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land. And Jehovah appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed I will give this land. And there builded he an altar unto Jehovah, who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. And there he builded an altar unto Jehovah, and called upon the name of Jehovah. And Abram journeyed, going on still toward the south. Now, this is where we get to back to where we are kind of keeping track of what Sarai is going through. So Abram and Sarai in Egypt. Okay. And verse 10. And there was a famine in the land. Very important, because if you notice throughout scripture, a lot of things there's a lot of patterns in scripture. So whenever you see something like a famine, this is a big thing, right? This is famines cause people to move, to migrate, which I think is very interesting, because if you apply that to prophecy, you can actually kind of learn a thing or two. That's for a different time. All right. And Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Baby, I know you're beautiful. Therefore, it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass, that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house, and he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen, and he asses, and men servant and maid servants, and she asses and camels. Now I'm going to stop right there, okay? And actually, I went further than what I wanted, which is fine. Okay, so at this point, oh, at this point, Abram was he was scared for his life. He knew that he had to go into Egypt. Number one, he had to go into Egypt. Excuse me. There was a famine in the land. They had no food, so he had to go into Egypt. Right? He had to go into the belly of the beast. Now he already knew my wife is gorgeous. I know that these men they're gonna fall over themselves for her, because she's a stunner. So he said, listen, you know, here's the thing. If we go in and they know that I'm your husband, they could very well kill me. They could very well kill me and take you anyway, right? But if you say that I'm your brother, which I am, half brother, right? If you say that I'm your brother, they will be more likely to not kill me, because I'm no longer seen as competition, right? But instead, they would want to entreat me to win your favor. So they would be more likely, in his mind and in his understanding, they would be more likely to deal with him righteously if they thought that they could win favor with Sarai by entreating him well. Now, I thought about this, and I'm like, because I've read so many different articles, and people are like, oh, it seemed like very cowardice what he did, and actually it was kind of smart. It was really smart, because the fact of the matter is, they could have easily, if they wanted Sarai and they knew that she was his wife, they knew that the marriage, if these two folks were married, there was really no way they were going to be able to get her unless they took her by force, right? They would have to then kill her husband to take her. But without her being married, right? Then there was no real reason that she couldn't be easily attainable, that she couldn't be won over as a wife for them. So it was actually really smart, because had she said, oh, well, this is my husband, they could have killed him and taken her and done God knows what to her. And I would venture down the route of sexual assault. They could have very, very well have raped her and taken her anyway. And I say rape, and it sounds harsh, right? But let's be honest here. This was not anything new to the heathen nations. We look at Esther, and I know everyone likes to think that Esther just like fell in love with this Persian king and he just adored her. Esther was raped. Esther was a young woman who was raped by this king, and he ended up liking her and married her. In fact, if you read Esther, if you check out my Esther Bible study, you will see that this king had a new virgin every day. Are you meaning to tell me these virgins were just like, oh yes, take me now, king? No, I don't think so. And actually, Esther was taken against her will. So no, she did not fall in love with the king and became a beautiful queen. No, she was raped. She was taken against her will. Let's call it what it is. So it isn't a new thing for heathen men to take women unwillingly, okay, and quote unquote marry them, right? So the fact of the matter is, he was actually protecting himself and her because the latter could have happened, and it would have been a bad thing for both of them. He would have ended up dead, she would have ended up raped and still taken by these men. So he played it smart by saying, you know what? Let me be your bro. Let me just pretend you be your brother, and you just be my sister, and it worked out, right? Because these men now were trying to win her favor and his favor as well, and they both got to keep their life, and they were both protected. So I do want to talk about that because I know there's this misconception that Abraham was being selfish or cowardice, and I've read all these different types of thoughts about this, and I wholeheartedly disagree. I actually think it was really smart. It was really really smart. Now, I will say that it's important to know that at this time, while they were in Egypt, they were still Abram and Sarai. So Yah had not made the covenant with them yet at this point, right? The covenant that would transform them from old creatures, from Abram and Sarai into Abraham and Sarah, that had not taken place yet. They had not been made new creatures in Torah at this point yet, right? But we must turn over every stone. So yeah, we do have to talk about it, okay? As uncomfortable as it may be. Now, here's the thing. In the scriptures, the words that's being used, it says, she was taken, right? The woman was taken into the home of Pharaoh. Was taken translates into that's Strong's H3947 lakah. And I'm not saying it right. I'm sure my husband, who is a Hebrew moray, I'm sure he will correct me, but that's all I got for you, babe. Lamed Kuf Het, for those of you who want to go into that. So the meaning of that is to take, to fetch, to lay hold of, to lay siege of, to receive, to acquire, to buy, to bring, also to marry, to take a wife, to snatch, or to take away. So all of these meanings apply to that word in that part of the scripture where it says she was taken. So some argue that Pharaoh may have actually taken her to be his wife, which is why when you read later on in the chapter, his home became plagued. But there's no actual proof of that because that word lakach actually doesn't specifically say, like, you know what, he took her as his wife. No, it actually says it could be to take, to fetch, to seize, to buy, to bring in, to marry, to snatch, to take away. So I wanted to kind of quench that because I know people say that, or they have this thought that that might be the case. I can't say whether it is or isn't. I don't know. I'm just reading what the scriptures say, and I'm kind of dissecting what the Hebrew says with that. So we'll move on from that, but I did want to address that. Now, by the end of the chapter, and let's just go to it real quick. All right. Okay. Verse 17. And Yahweh plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, she is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to be my wife. Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away, and his wife, and all that he had. So, as you can see here, Pharaoh wasn't too happy to find out that she was married, and because his house became plagued, right? And yeah, so again, like I said, I do believe that It was actually strategic planning that made that work out so well. But I will also venture to say a few more things. So, in regards to Sarah, right? In regards to Sarah in this situation, let's note her characteristics, okay? She is submissive, she's obedient, and she is selfless. Okay, she is mindful that her husband's safety is one of her top priorities. Right, her husband's safety, his life could be in jeopardy, and so she was able to put that at the front of her mind and really try to ensure his safety, even by putting herself on the line. Let me say something, ladies, sisters. Her behavior exhibits that of Hamashiach, of the church, of the body of Yehoshua. That should be us, not just as women, but as children of Yah, but as the bride of Yehoshua, as the church, as the body of Yehoshua. This is how we should be. We should not only be submissive, we should be obedient. But guys, ladies, sisters, I don't know, we should be selfless. My husband and I were talking about this the other day. What are the characteristics of being godly? Well, think of Yah. He gives and he gives and he gives. He protects and he provides, right? Look at Yehoshua, Hamashiach. What are his characteristics? He gives, he gives, he gives. He gave all of himself. He gave everything, physically and spiritually, for us. So what he came to teach, when Hamashiach came to teach, right? Torah, everyone knew Torah. Torah was being taught every Shabbat in the temples. What he came to teach was true selflessness, true love, Hebraic love, which means to be selfless. That is what he came to teach, because you had people who were keeping the law and yet they were condemning their brethren. You had people who were keeping the law and yet they were condemning him for healing, when healing was him giving, was him loving his people. You had people who were quote unquote keeping the law, and these same people, were allowing their brethren to suffer, to starve on the Shabbat, to go through these trials and tribulations without a care for them, because they were too busy quote unquote keeping the law. And so what Hamashiach came to teach is, yeah, he had to teach them how to love, to be selfless, to be obedient, to be submissive. He was the perfect lamb because he laid his life down. And we, as the body of Hamashiach, we should be doing the same thing, not even just as wives and as mothers and as any role that we play as women in Torah. As the body, we should all be seeking to be submissive, to be obedient. Oh, but more than all, to be selfless, so much so that we are all willing to lay our lives on the line for any one of our brethren. You know, I got to get back to it because I just totally went off on my Ruach, y'all. And so, I commend Sarah for this, right? Because those characteristics, they exemplify characteristics of what it means to be a godly woman. She was submissive, she was obedient, oh, and she was selfless because she put the life of her husband before her own, the life of her head before her own. This woman is incredible. This woman is she's brave, she's strong, she is, oh, she's righteous, she's a godly woman, and this example here just shows it. But y'all, it doesn't stop there. She allows herself to be subjected to the attentions of another man, to demonstrate her love and her loyalty and her obedience, her reverence, right? Her respect, but most of all, her faith in her husband. Her actions showed how much she loved him. It showed how much she was loyal to him. It showed her obedience to him. It showed her respect for him, for his life, right? And it showed her faith in him. Now, it's when sometimes when we're thinking about it like that, like, wow, she felt all this way. She did all of this for her husband. I want you to kind of think about this, right? If we are the church, we are the bride. And Hamashiach, Yehoshua Hamashiach, is our bridegroom, right? He's our husband. Are you willing to demonstrate your Oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm just, are you willing to demonstrate your love and your loyalty and your obedience and your respect for him? Are you willing to show your faith in him? Are you willing to lay down your life? Would you lay down your life for him? Would you lay down your life for Hamash? Would you lay down your life for him? Because if you would do it for him, then why wouldn't you do it for your husband? Why wouldn't you do it for your children, for your brethren? Oh man, sorry. I believe in this particular instance, this was actually one of the first real tests to manifest Abram's faith in Yah. And I believe it wasn't just a test in faith for him, but also for Sarai, as they are one. And know this, both partners, right, can in this walk can and will be tested constantly. And so we need to be there for our husbands. We need to be there to have their back. They need to be able to trust in us. We need to be loyal to them, love them, reverence them, obey them, submit to them. And in turn, they will do everything to keep us safe, to be protected and provided for. We are two halves of a whole, y'all. And it's so important that we recognize that when we walk. And if you have a hard time doing that for your husband, then I want you to imagine Yehoshua HaMashiach in your husband's place. Would you do anything for him? And that's the same way we need to be with our husbands. Now, by Sarah obeying her husband, even if inside she was afraid or she was doubtful, she did as he'd asked her. He asked her to say that she was his sister, and she did it, right? In obeying him, in obeying her husband, sisters, she established her own faith in Yah. She had faith that Abram was being led by Yah. She trusted that because she trusted him. She trusted her husband and she trusted that he was being led by Yah. And so it established her faith in Yah. She saw what Yah was doing with her husband. She saw how Yah was leading him. She was there, right? So this whole situation, it solidifies her faith as a woman in Torah, as a wife in Torah. It establishes her as Abram, right, the father of the faithful. It establishes her as his faithful wife. Ladies, sisters, in obeying our husbands, we are demonstrating and manifesting our faith in Yah. We are saying that we trust that Yah is leading our men. We trust that even if we might not agree with the decision or with the path or the left or the right, we trust that he is being led by Yah and we put our lives in his hands. Putting our lives in our husband's hands reflect on how we put our lives in Yah's hands. And we must trust our husbands to, to safe keep that, just as we trust Hamashiach to safeguard and to safe keep us, our lives in his hands. We all experience times when our faith is being tested, and we must choose to allow it to be manifested in our lives. We must allow the manifestation of our faith to shine through and to be that beacon of light, not only for ourselves, for our husbands, for our children, but for those around us, for the unbelievers, for our sisters, for our brethren, for anyone who can see us. Our actions, our walk should be a manifestation of our faith that lies in the hands of Yehoshua HaMashiach. We must allow desires of our hearts, which should be always on Yah's will for us, to take form with our actions. I'll say that again. We must allow the desire of our hearts, which should be on Yah's will for us, to take form and to be manifested and to reflect in our actions. It is not enough to simply keep Torah. Torah is the minimum requirement. It is the foundation. It is the building blocks, right? It is the ABCs and one, two, three. But once you master that, now it's time to now take the ABCs and make words. And when you've mastered that, now take those words and make sentences, and so on and so forth. We should be constantly growing in this truth. We should be constantly allowing the Ruach to move through us, to use us, to cultivate the fruits of the Spirit within us, to be able to have that shine through us in our actions, in our words, and be a reflection of not only Yehoshua HaMashiach, of not only Yehovah, but also our husbands, and that our children should be able to reflect their mother and their father and what they see. And we should be examples of Yehoshua HaMashiach, and our children should be able to follow that and exemplify that in their walks. Because, folks, when we start focusing on the fruits of the spirits and the challenges that are within instead of the challenges that are without, that is when the real work actually begins. Living a life that exemplifies not only Torah, but also the fruit of the Spirit displays a spiritual growth that is necessary in order to walk hand in hand with our Creator and in order to be prepared for our bridegroom, which is Yehoshua HaMashiach. I also, um, I need some water. I'm sorry. Excuse me, y'all. I also believe this instance in Egypt was Yah showing them it was what it was to be in covenant with him. Because at this point, he hadn't made the covenant with them yet, but he was showing them, listen, y'all ride with me, I'm going to protect you. Y'all ride with me, those who come against you, I'm going to plague them. So this was another example of how Yah was going to demonstrate his loyalty to them, his part of the promise, his of what he could provide for them as a leader, as a God, right? As Elohim. Now, the type of protection they would receive, and at that point, again, they hadn't entered into the covenant yet, but this makes me think of what he did back in Egypt, in Exodus, right? Or in this point, at this point in story, forward in Egypt, right? When he took the Israelites out of Egypt, he provided for them and he protected them and he led them all before making the covenant with them on Mount Sinai. So Yah proved before he even entered into a marriage covenant with Israel, Yah proved that he could protect them. He protected them from the Egyptians. He proved that he could provide for them. He gave them manna from heaven. He proved that he could lead them. He led them with a pillar of fire and a pillar of smoke. He did all of the requirements of a husband before he even made the covenant with them on Mount Sinai. And this is what he was doing with Abram and Sarai. He was showing them, listen, if I'm your God, if I'm your Elohim, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to provide for you and I'm going to lead you. And he did all of these things right then and there. The first example in Egypt. Um, Now, why did he put the plagues? Why did Yah put the plagues on him? I don't have an answer for that, but I will say, I will question it, right? Can we assume that it's because the Pharaoh dealt with Abram as Sarah's brother and not as his head or not as her head or her husband? Um, could that have been like an act of showing contempt for him? Could that have been Pharaoh disregarding him as anyone he'd have to really go through in order to get to Sarai? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Tell me what you think. Drop some comments. Tell me what you think about that. Um, but again, like I said, this is where Yah's promised to curse all of those who, go against Abram, who curse him, that he will curse them. All those who hold Abram in contempt, what he would do to them. And I mean, at the end of this, chapter, he leaves Pharaoh with some whole lot of problems. Not the first time he was played, right? No, but yeah, so that's what happens when Yah is your leader, when he is your head, when he is your covering. Oh my God. Ladies, if you have followed me along this long. I know it's been an hour. I meant to do it half an hour, but the Ruach just like totally took over. And I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, actually. I'm not sorry because I just really wanted to get that out. And I just want to give a second here just to give the Most High all the praise, honor, and glory. All the praise, honor, and glory, Father. I'm sorry. I'm so emotional right now because I just believe. I believe in all your promises. I believe in everything that He has for us. I believe in everything that He's made us to be and everything that He's made us to see and to learn. And I thank Him so much for giving me the opportunity to meet Him and see Him in His Word, to meet Yehoshua in His Word, and to be able to apply it to my life and to give it to my children and to have it within my marriage. I just give y'all all the praise, honor, and glory. And I thank Him so much. I thank Him so much for the opportunity to be able to minister to my sisters and to my children. I thank Him for the opportunity to serve my husband and to truly love him and to be an example to him of the love that I have for Hamashiach, to be able to love my husband the same way. And sisters, we are not perfect. We are not perfect in our walk, but every day we have a new day to try to be better, to try to please Yah, to try to please Yehoshua, to try to please our husbands, to be better moms. Every day we have a new day to do this, and I'm really thankful. I'm really thankful. I'm really thankful to be able to be here with you tonight to share this with you. I'm really thankful to be able to share part of my journey. Um, as a lot of you know, I'm not perfect. I'm so far from it. And I'm grateful that y'all is really working in my life to be able to share some of my testimony about where he's taking me. And I don't know where he's leading me, but I am all in. I'm all in, and I just give my whole faith, my whole heart, and everything that I have to Him, because I do believe. I do believe in this. I do believe in the Word. I believe in Yehoshua. I believe in Yah with everything in my being, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to be a wife and to be a mother. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to share with you sisters and to build. Um, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Um, I'm just gonna close and say thank you so much for tuning in. I know this took a turn for like I'm not trying to like be sad. I'm just very touched by just the power of Yah, you know. Okay, so get it together. Thank you so much for tuning in for Sarai to Sarah Part 1. Stay tuned for Part 2. It'll be coming soon. I like to say maybe next week, but y'all, the way my kids is set up, it can happen at any time. So just stay tuned for Part 2. Thank